So throughout my undergrad, I've held 2 part-time jobs and I've gotten through school. And honestly, this next picture probably summarizes my entire undergrad really, really, really well, and I'm sure you can all relate to it. I was a commuter for 4 years, and I have found the best places to sleep, including upside down in the UC Commuter Center. Con Hall, best 4-hour naps, and we have double bio classes. So definitely, if you are a commuter, I know there was one of you, and Jasmine and the other one. Yes, good job. And I'm not saying that because I commuted for 4 years, but it is going to be a lot of boredom. But then when you find your path, it's going to be really amazing. So for me, it really hasn't been that easy. I've actually dropped out of school. In my second year, I ended up having a medical problem where I just couldn't walk anymore. So I had to drop out of school my second year, go into physical rehab, be in the hospital for about 2 months. And you know what? These photos are actually 4 months apart. That was around April of, and this is around September. So you know what? What brought me back to school from when I was on the verge of dropping out? It was honestly leadership. Like getting involved and making an impact in people's lives really, really brought me back and helped me with my academics. I'm not going to say U of T is going to be easy, and I'm sure this is going to tell you that. This was my transcript when I dropped out of school. I had 2 withdrawals, I had a D, I actually had an F, but I came back and did the exam. The next one is kind of like a success story. It was my final year where I ended up getting a 3.86. I was so proud of myself because I was like, look, started from the bottom, now we're here. I also joined the UC Council as an off-campus commissioner and worked with some off-campus leadership stuff. So you know, that's what it is. It's finding your niche and what defines you. So next question is, how do you define leadership? Okay, so I'm a historian. Of course, I have to bring history into this talk. Have any of you used the Ngram viewer? So it basically tells you when a word became popular in literature. And you can actually see that the word leadership spiked in the 1970s. So what is this magical word? Like, okay, honestly, so much shout out. What do you think leadership is? This is awkward, but somebody. Yes, go.
Making sure other people have.
No.
Part of being a leader is being able to be put on the spot and helping Sarah with her talk.
Done. Said that.
No, not doing it.
Yeah. You know, it is a word we throw around with so much muscle, but you know, what does it really mean to be a leader? And honestly, this is what Forbes says. It says, leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards achievements of a goal. I call that BS. I honestly think, this is my notes for the talk when I was writing it out, I honestly think leadership is how you as an individual choose to define the word for yourself. Yes, there's going to be all these talks that spike in the 1970s, people trying to create this niche of like what makes an ideal leader, but honestly, it's you and yourself and how you define it. It's about motivating others. It's about being the best at what you do, going the extra mile, being the bigger person, knowing when to stay silent. Those are actually my favorite types of leaders, the ones you never see out there, but they're always going to be there. And I'm sure you guys saw it during Frosh Week too. There's those leaders who are going to be out there cheering their hearts out, then there's going to be those leaders who you know are going to be there till 2 a.m. cleaning up. Nobody is any less of a leader. It depends on who you are as a person. And the biggest thing is getting out of your comfort zone. Like calling Christina and Cole out, totally taking them out of their comfort zones. So it's totally worth it for me. Good examples. Also part of being a leader is the one thing I want to drive home to you guys today. Define yourselves as an individual. You are your own brand. Create your bucket list. Find your passion. Like I love history. I could slide in with it. Challenge yourself and take control of your life. So anyhow, I met your mother fans in here. Okay, so for those of you, if you know, they have Barney Stinson, Neil Patrick Harris. He and his friend Marshall, he was getting a job as a law firm, and he was about to get laid off. So Barney actually told him, you know, find your niche, define yourself, and he ended up being a sports guy at his law firm. So you got to find out what your personal brand is. For me, my personal brand is just being that person who's always going to be there for you, always going to put 110%, and just always go out of their extra mile. You got to define what you are and go from that point onwards. Your only competition is you from yesterday. Everybody here is at a different level. You have different paths, you have different futures, you have different goals in your life. What depends is, do you wake up in the morning and you say, have I done something different today? Have I done something better? That's every question I ask myself before I go to sleep and before I wake up in the morning. Define who you are and where you want to go. Where do you see yourself taking your path? Do you see yourself joining student politics? Do you see yourself joining a club? And let me tell you, U of T has a club for everything. And if they don't, you can start it. So take time to think about that. Like my first year, I spent sleeping, and I didn't join anything. And do I regret it? No, not really, because it helped me stabilize myself and then progress further. So try and figure out what that is, get out of your comfort zones, create a path that helps you in some way and gives back to others at the same time. We actually have 3 homeless shelters around campus. People don't realize that. Did you guys know? And then so I want to summarize basically, define yourself, create a path, ask for help. I'm always around, which I'll be Facebook friends after this, please. And honestly, one of the biggest things you can do is write to your future self. I always write, Dear Sarah. And at the beginning, I wrote myself at the beginning of my undergrad, and I was like, Dear Sarah, it's okay if you fail. Life, it's all part of this beautiful story called life, and it's going to be worth it as long as you do everything at the end of the day that you want to do. So what I'm driving home to you today is leadership is really what you define it, but first you have to define yourself before you can help others define themselves. So I'm going to end off here before any of you start nodding off. And I want to seriously ask you guys, do you have any questions?